The Tim Heale Podcasts. Ordinary people's extraordinary stories.
Welcome to the Tim Heale Podcast. In this episode, I'm going to have a chat with Keith. So, Keith, if you can tell me when and where you were born, if you could describe to me what it was like where you grew up, the schools you went to, and the education that you received. So, over to you, Keith.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me on today. I'm Canadian, so I was just born north of Toronto in Ontario, Canada, in the great year of 1979. Do the math; the gray hair might fool you how old I am. Grew up in a bit of a modern family of today. Maybe not so much back in the late 70s and 80s, but there was myself and I have four other siblings. So with my parents, it would be seven of us. And even though we came from different points in our parents' life, we all grew up together. So seven of us growing up, all within 5 years. So there was lots of time where we had, sorry, my daughter was getting through there. So there was, grew up with five of us within 5 years, my oldest sisters, and then I had a identical twin brother, if the world can believe that. There's two of me out there, although since I came out first, I always tell people when I bug my brother growing up that the carbon copy wasn't as pure, so
or as clever or as funny.
Yeah, just a couple degrees off. So I grew up in a small town, and through high school and into college, made the decision early on that I recognized policing being something that I kind of wanted to be a part of, wanted to be somebody that was there to help the community, protect my family, and did everything I could to align myself by putting all my eggs in my basket pretty much early on to focus on policing being the career. So once I got through college, worked in security, trying to get that job experience leading up to being hired by the service.
So obviously you made that kind of decision way back in kindergarten then.
It was in my teenage years that I really decided that policing was going to be what I wanted to do. Again, it kind of came from a place of wanting to protect my family, making sure that no one would ever hurt them, and hopefully being that kind of one, guy in uniform. I had some officers that were, I guess, would be like community outreach liaison officers that came into the high school, and they were always cool, working out with us, playing basketball, just wanted to spend time with us. And so I figured that they were pretty inspirational in wanting me to be a police officer. I still remember the officer's name. Officer Mo was his name. And I think he's a sergeant now. He could be higher than a sergeant now in York Regional Police. But Officer Mo, he was my guy. Yeah.
So anyway, let's take you a little bit further back. So can you remember much about your kindergarten before you moved up into sort of the junior school?
Gosh, we're diving deep into the history of childhood. Whoa.
This is kind of important. This is kind of what sets out your stall for where you get to.
Yeah, I remember being in kindergarten, not a lot. I did go to one public school, but then after kindergarten, transferring to a middle school where I completed grades 1 to 5 before going into junior high. I think my favorite sandwich in that time frame was jam and cheese. Don't ask me why I ate it. It was strawberry jam with processed orange cheese. I look at it today being the most disgusting thing in the world, but every day I sat next to a kid who had a ketchup sandwich, and that was my lunch buddy. I don't remember his or her name, But I remember this kid having a ketchup sandwich and me having a jam and cheese sandwich, and kids looking at us like we were really weird. So sticking together, that's what we did.
Like cheese possessed, was it? Come out
I
the
don't
tin.
know. I could have it. Yeah, it was like that orange cheese that you peel out of the wrapper, right?
Yeah.
That Kraft cheese single. But I remember one day eating it every day. I just wanting it every day, and then one day walking out to the vehicle, eating it, and looking at it and being like, "This is the most disgusting thing ever. I'm not enjoying it anymore." And I ended up and the friend dropped it and never ate it ever again. Haven't even thought about it. Just dropped it cold turkey.
Wow. So was your brother, your younger brother, in the same class as you?
Yeah, I know my twin brother. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I
Well, because he's younger
well,
than you.
younger.
He
Yeah,
popped out
seven
for.
and a half
Yeah, yeah.
minutes. 7.5 minutes. Never forgets it. Um, yeah, so we were together in kindergarten, but I know growing up in school, up until we were into high school, we were never in the same class. We never had the same teacher. Um, Even though anyone who ever talks to me now, before the first thing they ask me is how you're doing, and then, hey, how's your brother doing? How's your twin brother doing? My parents tried to get us as being as separate as possible.
Hmm.
Um, you know, we didn't dress alike, although we had similar interests. Competing in sports and stuff, we were very, we'd be on the same teams for that. But as far as like dressing up the same, um, no, that was something that we
Now,
didn't practice.
did you look identical?
We do, and it's
And did
so.
you ever swap classes?
So yes, we did. We got immediately burned. It didn't last longer than us trying to get into each other's lines to get into school. I think it was grade 3 or 4. We got busted right away. So during our early years, we didn't get a lot of fun with it, but not trying. There was times that once we got working, we were working at 2 different hospitals. So we did security for the same security company. Because at a time, I do believe he was trying to make it a go, trying to get into the services. But he worked at one hospital, I worked at the other, and we had paramedics and nursing because a lot with the paramedics would go to the same hospitals.
Mm.
And nursing staff, if they didn't work, full time at one site, they worked part time at the other, and they're always like, "Man, I saw you over at this hospital. Why were you so grumpy that day?" I'm like, "I don't work there." They're like, "Yeah, I do. I totally walked up to you. And you look like you didn't even know me." I'm like, "Oh, you met my twin brother. You met my twin brother." Or like, "Yeah, you're always so happy when you're here." And I never got a chance to ask this, but why are you so happy here and you're so grumpy there? Like, you just have a better time working here? I'm like, "Yeah, that's me. That's my twin brother." And it got even funnier when I got on because my brother and I'm doing some security work for a Major League Baseball team up here, the Toronto Blue Jays. So when I was working, I know we're getting ahead of the cart here, but I had people like supervisors that would like accost my brother for working secondary employment without authorization from the chief of police. And he because they look at him like he looks just like me. Why is this guy standing on the field dressed in like Blue Jay security gear and working the field? Like, he's a cop. He can't be doing this. And he'd play right into it, right? He'd play. And he's like, "Well, I can't get a pay duty here to work policing, so I can't get overtime. I got to make my money." And he just have some supervisors fit for a straitjacket over some of it. So even though we didn't have a lot of fun growing up with it, since we've got a little bit older, unbeknownst to us, it's kind of played our hands, so we've had a little bit of fun with it.
Hmm. So, middle school then, how did that go?
So being really, I would say athletic, growing up, the sport of choice in my house for pretty much our family was track and field, even though my oldest sister was very heavily involved in theater and dance. We did track and field, and I ran competitive track from the age of 9 till about 1920 is when I started competing on a national scale and international. Because the dream was at one point to go to the Olympics in the 1500 meter, and then retire and be a sports broadcaster and do interviews. I thought that would be the coolest job in the world to have. But yeah, so it was all sports. It was all sports, and if there was a school sports, whenever volleyball came out, or basketball, cross country, track, you name it, I was trying out for it and playing it. But kept me pretty much out of trouble a lot doing track and field, because one thing I think my parents always used to tell me, like, well, if you want to be fast, you can't smoke and you can't drink. So, and I was like, well, yeah, I want to be the fastest. I'm running. I'm training to be the fastest I can. So if this is going to hurt me from getting to be faster, then I just can't do it. So it really kind of never even was a thought, even though when sometimes it was presented, I was like, oh man, that's going to slow me down. I'm always in training. So when kids were out doing mischievous things, my part of being fun was grabbing my best friend, evidently who's a firefighter now, and we would go for like a 10K run, or on the weekend if there was like a half marathon or some sort of grueling race in the city, like, hey, you want to go run 8K through the downtown core, or 10K? They're giving out t-shirts. I'm like, oh yeah, can I get a free t-shirt to run this race? Sure, let's go do it, right? Now it seems you get a medal for everything. Every time you run a race somewhere, you get a medal. Before, it was t-shirts, man. They're just showing up and getting that t-shirt.
So I had a question there. What was the question? Rugby. Did you get into rugby at all? Because I mean, they kind of do that in Canada, don't they? They got a national team.
They do, and they got. I know we had it in our high school. I never really got into it because when rugby was on, it was full on track season. So I was really competing more so, focusing on the athletics and track. I did play high school football into early, summer ball for some private clubs. Looking back, not that I did not enjoy playing football. It did take me away from my athletics, competing, especially at the distance that I was specializing in, which is the 1500. It was kind of counterproductive. The more time I was doing time playing football, doing short sprints, it was kind of taken away from that training. But all good, can't go back in time.
No, I say doing short sprints and distance work don't really go together unless you're doing the sprints at the end of a long run.
I did have a kick. That's the one thing that I could never put together on a race, right? I was always a smart runner where I didn't really lead from the front. I was kind of middle, but sometimes I dropped myself too far back in the pack. And then usually my last lap was faster than my first, which you want. But it wasn't enough because I had let too much distance go. So I was always, third, fourth, never quite at top of the podium when it came to certain events, just because I had given too much ground to get up. But yeah, the kick, there is something to chase as far as a bit of an adrenaline, a bit of a junkie when it comes to somebody who does athletics, and having that feeling of that final kick sprint. It's a feeling where you're just mowing people down as you're passing them in a state that it's undescribable. And when you're in it, it feels like nothing else is better in the world. And you're in that running state. And I think a lot of runners can empathize and identify what that feeling is. It's hard to describe, but when you're in that state, it's something like no other.
Yeah, I guess rugby would have been a good choice for you for the distance running, because you're constantly running in rugby.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if you're a small guy like me that plays scrum half, you're constantly running, trying to keep up with the ball. If they keep passing it out, You've got
Yeah.
to get in there to recycle the ball every time. So yeah,
I would be like
so
a
scrum half does
wingman.
nothing but run.
Yeah, I'd be like one of those wingman guys. I don't know if I would consider myself part of the scrum, although I think there's a position in rugby that's called the hooker. I don't know if that's quite
Yeah, you wouldn't want to
correctly
be the
used these
hooker.
days. Don't want
He's
to
the
be the
one with
hooker.
the
I don't
two
think
cauliflower ears. He's the one that's in the middle.
cauliflower ears. Yeah,
Yeah, he's the
but
one
I'd be
right in
on
the
the
middle of
wing
the scrum. Well, you
and
probably
running for
want
my
to
life. No
be a
equipment,
centre or
no
a
helmet.
wing.
Yeah, just give me the ball and I'd run because I mean, trying to tackle with no equipment on, I'd just be like, no, try to run as fast as I could, like I was set on fire somewhere.
Yeah. So, going into high school, let's have a look at your high school. What so you concentrated on your track and field. What about the off season? What did you do in the off season?
Well, I mean, when you had cross country and then you went indoors for indoor track and then you came outside for the spring and ran outdoors, there really wasn't, I say, a true off season. You're always just kind of moving to one distance or so. We were fortunate to live close to one of the universities in Toronto. That wasn't too far of a drive, so we would go there, 2-3 times a week and train indoors at the university, and have our indoor competitions. And then once the snow melts, which in Canada is shortly before July when all the ice thins out. No, our snow melts well before then, but we would move outdoors and do outdoor right until the fall. And then when fall picked in, you were right into cross country and then playing football. So there wasn't really any time off, which was good because again, it kind of kept me out of trouble and stuff and was always keeping me active. I don't know if the grocery bill at home, my parents were in favor of always burning calories and always having to eat. I don't know if I could afford that, especially nowadays with prices going up. I have a little guy, so if he's anything half as me, it's going to be start putting the funds towards that grocery bill now so I can afford it.
Yeah, start saving for a mortgage for the next meal.
Right. Yeah, and it's not for any sort of property. It's just for the grocery bill because I can imagine like the amount of food I can recall eating as a kid through high school. Having 2 or 3 friends come over and polishing off a box of 40 hamburgers on the barbecue wasn't a problem, right? So who comes home and eats 10 hamburgers? This guy right here, right? One's okay.
So were you in ever competition with your brother?
Everything was a competition with my brother, like everything. I mean, to eating our food, oh my God, to, going from one place to the other, like everything was a competition. But my brother was more into the sprints. So as I grew out of the sprint distance and got more into, the 815, that's when we became kind of competing separately. So, but no, going through like, the early years of our track and field and into public school and stuff, we were in grade school. We were very much competitive in everything as far as 100 meters, you name it. Never beat me. He there's a few times there was a kind of practice and stuff like that. He'd have me, but never in a meet. Never, ever beat me in a meet ever. I can hold that over his head. He knows it. He knows it.
Slight edge. Slight edge being the older brother, I suppose.
I don't think it was just so much of being older. Is that I think a part of me knew like my brother was probably faster than me. Like he was probably faster, but I felt that I just made the dedication and an application to training, where sometimes he had a lot of natural talent and thought that he could maybe get by with that. But I guess that's the one thing, even though if you have natural abilities, you still have to put the work in. And that's one thing I always seem to do is put in the work. And he just super close at times, but nope, never took me over. Never took me over. I hope at one point he gets to see this because Yeah, ribbing them at 43. I can still rib them.
Brilliant. So, what was your best subject in school other than track and field? Then,
None of them. I don't really, and it's not that I didn't enjoy school. Like, don't get me wrong. I think the way that I have now at my stage of my life learned and recognized how I best receive information, how I am able to um, basically digest information and teach myself and learn. It's not what schools were offering at the time, so I didn't really like a lot of subjects. Um, I do enjoy geography, um, but as far as like going to school and liking it, no, school was always pretty tough for me. I always had to work double hard, um, or sometimes triple hard just to kind of get the C's, to get by. But as I tell kids who are passing these days, not that I don't want them to achieve everything, but I do tell them that, you know, uh, two jokes I make: C's get degrees. You can get a degree at getting a C, and you know, I don't know how much you'd want to deal with them, but you know, what do they call the lowest person, or what do they call the person who gets the lowest mark in medical school? A doctor, right? So they're all doctors. They're all doctors. I don't know if any doctor puts up what they got, you know, in grade 12
yeah,
science or whatever, but the diploma's on the wall, and hey, they're a doctor.
yeah,
Again, you know, you can choose to deal with them or not, but you know, I think there's just more uh, ways to go about learning life, kind of experiencing life, getting employments, getting jobs, than, you know, being in that traditional classroom environment. Because even when I got into policing, you know, you were sent off to the police college for 3 months, and I mean, that was at 25 years old. I went out there, 25, 26, and I even at that time really struggled because I was like, oh my god, just like, can we just make this practical and get, like, I can't do the hard book study stuff. Like, I'll read,
mm,
I enjoy reading, I love doing that, but like sitting in a classroom environment attached to a desk, sitting down, is something that I don't excel at. But if you get into applying it, you know, whether it be you know, dynamic situations, driving, you know, shooting, you know, take the information, actually do it. I feel that's where I can showcase my abilities to retain information better
yeah,
than just sitting there being told and dictated information and told you have to learn this. And it's like, no, it's a fishbowl.
yeah,
Like, water's going in, water's coming out, and I'm losing how to do everything.
yeah. I suppose you have to do a certain amount of um, knowing the law and specific stuff that's the classroom stuff, and then the rest of it all comes down to um, the practical skills that you need.
Yeah,
So, when you graduated high school, did you go to college?
not right away. I took a year off and put a little folding money in the pocket. You know, tried to uh, get enough money so that I could pay for school. You know, coming from a family of seven and other siblings, you know, you kind of had to make your own, which is fine. There's no traumatic healing needed from that. You just, you wanted something, you go after it, and you know, you pay for it, which is fine, because I think, you know, like anything, if you pay for something that you've bought your own, you're going to take care of it a little bit better. If you're making that investment in yourself, you might appreciate a little bit, rather than it being gifted to you and not really understanding the work that goes in to actually being there to do it. So when I was in school, yeah, it was all in, right? So um, little adjustment sitting back in school, but by the time I was done, I had just missed the dean's list. Like, I was, you know, this is what I really wanted to do, so I made it, you know, fully immerse myself in, you know, proper study habits, you know, leaning on people that had better grades than me um, to be their study buddies. You know, kind of
Mm.
recognize like who's the smart one in the class. Well, this person knows what they're doing. I'm going to sit next to them. But yeah, so um, went to a 2-year college. out here in Durham, where I am now, in the region here, and did the Police Foundation program here before I got on, and then yeah, it was good. I didn't get tired right away after college, but it got me access to being in the security industry at a higher level because I had that training background.
So, what was involved in that sort of college course then? What sort of things were they covering?
You know, it was very similar to when I went out to the police college after I got hired by my service. It was just basically throwing the law at you, right? Showing you, making sure you knew how to write reports. There was physical component, you know, doing the provincial stats, you know, criminal code, learning all that stuff. I know there was some indigenous studies and stuff that we did as well to understand different cultures and you know, cultural sensitivity and stuff like that. So that was good. Like that was all good. But I know the one thing that I make a point now when I get into speaking with kids going through the process who are at the collegiate level or whatnot is to really have that whole wellness aspect that needs to be learned. Always ask kids when they're studying and stuff, like, you know, if they're talking to somebody about their welfare or how they're feeling and stuff, and they're like, no, I'm like, well, if this is what you're getting yourself into, it's something you need to learn now beforehand, like all our training and stuff and muscle memory. You know, it's ingrained to us at such a rate and pace, which is good because we are able to rely on those training, those abilities in times of stress without having to know, because the muscle memory is already kicked in. I think a lot of times, if we're able to implement a lot of healthy things as far as our wellness to that extent of muscle memory, then we're automatically, you know, picking that up at times of stress and doing it before we even know that we're doing it, because it's just a state that or a habit that you've built in.
So you got into police college then at the age of 25?
Yeah, 25, 26, and did not enjoy it. I even though no, it's funny that I say that. It comes off as a joke, but truly, I did not enjoy my time when I was out there, because again, a lot of it was, you know the law, sitting in classrooms. We had a lot of practical stuff, but I always felt that, you know, there was officer safety moments that could have been taught that they just were missing the boat on. And I was more of the belief that, okay, it's good that I know all that you need to know the law and memorize certain things and to know when you can act and when you can't act. Like, this is so critical. But those books are going to be available to me. Like, who knows the section or the subsection for a certain charge? Like, we know what assault is. We know what a mischief is. We know the general rules of it. To get down to it, to know what, you know, one for 144, section 1, sub A, sub I, double, you know, like, I don't know those off the top of my head, but I can access a book and know it, right? But really kind of getting the point of, like, you know, how truly officers conduct themselves, how somebody in the service is to somebody of the public. Because I honestly feel, and I've said this through my entire career, this is why I take such a position of pride of when I have interactions with members of the public, that I just don't do it for myself. I do it for the guy after me or the girl after me, because I want someone to leave the conversation with me knowing they're like, okay, you know what? That was a really nice police officer. That guy was really nice. So that the next time that officer approaches that person, it could be for asking them for help or there to help them. they're going to give that grace, that 5 seconds of openness of their mind and their heart to that other officer. If I leave that interaction with that person and I have, belittled them and made them feel horrible, how do you think they're going to treat the next officer? Right?
Yeah.
They're going to be on them before they can even open their mouth, because the last guy I dealt with was horrible. So this person is going to be as horrible, or I'm expecting that treatment. And I just don't think enough was done overall, because a lot of times and it wasn't just a lot of the services are like, well, you're going to go out there and you're going to learn how they do it at the provincial, right? We have to go to the police college under the police mandate here in the province to be trained at the provincial level. But you're going to come back and then we're going to tell you how it's really done. And they have a lot of internal training and stuff for your individual services. And a lot of times you can hear from other guys that works for other services are like, well, why are you training me this? Because I just know when I go back, I'm going to be retrained or retold how to do it a different way. And, that sometimes can murky the water too, because there has to be a standard, right? It can't be like, well, this is a standard and then we're going to train you somewhere different. No, like this is a standard. Keep it one way consistently, right? So that, when you go to McDonald's, that hamburger or that cheeseburger is going to be made the same way every single time, right? That level of consistency, right? I don't know who likes McDonald's hamburgers, but I'm just saying, if you do, it's going to be the same way every time. I'm not a fan, but it's the same way every single time, right?
Well, that's what they did with the British Army. So the British Army, they did that. They standardized the junior NCO cadre and the senior NCO's cadre across the piece. So everybody goes and does exactly the same course, taught the same level. So you've got that consistency, and the rules were applied to everybody the same. If you pass the test, you'll get promoted. If you can't pass the test, then you don't. Simple as that. But they standardized it across the whole piece, which works, which makes us the best in the world, obviously.
I guess if I was a military guy, I might invoke a response there, but I'm sure there's a few guys that I know that are close to me like, why didn't you say this? Or why didn't you stick up for Canada and the military this way? I'm like, I'm not a service guy. I wish. Like, don't get me wrong. There was a time that I didn't want to join.
We're known the world over for being the best in the world. End of story. The British Army is the best in the world. End of story. There's no argument there. There's no comeback. We set a level for everybody to come up to.
Right. Just do the chin-ups, right? You're just almost there for the chin-up level. Yeah. Not quite, but yeah.
So there you go. So how long was you in training for with the police?
So we did 3 or 4 weeks in-house at the training at our service, and then went out to the Ontario Police College for 3 months, and then came back for an additional 5 weeks before we hit the road. So from the time I got hired in December, I was on the road in May. And from that, you're on with like a training officer for a period of time of 10 to 15 weeks doing being coached on the road. Yeah.
Out on the beat, as they say.
Out on the beat, yeah, right. So maybe having a car. Yeah,
it's more on the job training, I guess, where you learn to be a proper police officer. You're learning from an experienced officer that's already in that training environment, I guess.
Yeah, the phrase was always told to us. I can remember as a rookie or a boot was that it's time to shit or get off the pot, right? I'm sure it might be a military term as well, but get off the pot. If you're gonna do it, get out or get off. Like, you gotta go. It's pretty fast, when you get on the road, you're realizing immediately that the person you're with, that life is in your hands, and vice versa, they have your life in their hands. And I had this vet at the time that was senior guy. He was 30 something years on when I got on, and he had three rules in policing. Was ensure his first, when he rode with him, his rules were ensure your partner returns to their family safely. The second rule was ensure you return to your family safely at the end of the shift. And rule number three is to see rules 1 and 2. Like, that was it for him. Like, just ensure like everything else will work itself out. Like, courts will work themselves out, paperwork work themselves out. Like, his whole thing was making sure that safety was key, because that was the most important thing. So it's somebody that I, recognized and identified early on, that someone I could really kind of confine in and learn from, and really want to kind of see as almost as a mentorship of how they did it, because my values of ensuring that safety requirement was always being on the forefront of your thinking.
Yeah. So it's very much buddy looking after each other to be able to protect the general public better by looking after yourselves. And I guess that's kind of instilled into the British military, is when we're doing pre-deployment training, it's working as a team, it's looking after your buddies, it's making sure that everybody in your patrol is safe. Even in a hostile environment, it's that buddy system. You don't leave anybody behind. Your drills and your skills all come into play, and that's where we come into being the best in the world, because the way we do it. And I guess it's the same for you guys. With him, it's if you're not looking after each other, something goes Pete on, you can't deal with a situation, you can't be effective. And that's a key lesson to learn, I guess.
Yeah, and it's it's learned pretty quick that regardless of your thoughts or feelings you might have personally for somebody, that all kind of ends when you get in the car and you make it about the work. You don't have to really like the person you kind of work with. Sometimes I know there's many times that I'm sure people felt the same way as me. They're like, oh my God, I'm stuck with Keith today. Partner switch, please. Can I get somebody else? But always making it like it's the call. We're gonna do the call, and if we don't have to talk in between, we'll do the call. And there doesn't have to be like, hey, how you doing? How your family is? All that stuff. But when time comes for the call, just switch in then, and then that's fine. We can switch out after that.
So let's move on a little bit. Now, your mission in life is to look at highlighting mental health within the service, I guess.
Yeah.
How are you going about that?
Really from a point of lived experience, because of my policing career, I was exposed to quite a few traumas and traumatic events, and things that I really had a hard time dealing with early on in my career. We are getting to a point now, I think, overall within services, within at a world level, of recognizing the importance of talking about our feelings, talking about if something is not okay, if you're struggling with something. I think there's more of an awareness. It's really implementing the strategies and tools and getting the training to members who are working, especially first responders and military, so that, like I was referring back to earlier, that muscle memory training, so that when times of stress do occur, we're able to automatically go to that file of good, of that fountain of tools that are able there to support and assist us. And also being that person for somebody else, if we recognize it in them, or if somebody comes to us So, yeah, and you know, I was at a point in 2017, 2018 where I was really seeking that support, trying to get off the road. Majority of my career was spent in the patrol cars, being in uniform. That's why I signed up. I remember seeing the posters in the recruiting. Can you fill this uniform? Or are you able to fill this uniform? Was the tagline, and I had a picture of the uniform, and I was like, yeah, I can fill that uniform. Like I can represent that uniform and what it represents, and what I feel that represents. So I remember like asking quietly. I say that quietly because a lot of times when someone's struggling with mental health, we don't want to kind of put out a bumper sticker or any sort of lights, because a lot of times, dealing with policing and you come out and say that you have mental health problems, that could result in you being in handcuffs, brought to the hospital. And although maybe at times I was at the clinical level, I could have been in those environments, but I knew, even though that was the type of help I needed, I knew that wasn't going to be something that would benefit me. I wouldn't gain anything from being dragged away in handcuffs into a hospital to get help. I just wanted the help, and thought I could deal with it, like still working, but like maybe off the road doing some admin stuff. And was really surprised when I kind of got that letdown, that sanctuary trauma of being denied that time and space to come off the road, even though I was asking for it. I was always told that I was too valuable, or there was, staffing issues where we were too low, and we couldn't let you go for free. I can't let you go for free. I remember getting told all the time, you can't let you go for free. And at one point I was like, if you got offered right now in a trade a bag of pucks, I would take that deal, because I feel a bag of pucks is more valuable to the people, the citizens that I work in the community than I am right now, because I'm tapped out. I cannot do it anymore. And left myself with a decision, recalling my last day in the patrol car on the road, where it was me and a note, and that's how they were going to find me. I was just at the point where I felt I had exhausted all avenues to ask for help, and being told time and time again, no, or now's not the time, or being felt more that I was a number rather than a human. That gets your mind talking quite a bit of crap to you. And that's how they were going to find me, was in the patrol car with this note of everybody who let me down. And I kind of had a moment of clarity. And I say clarity because I'm very grateful for that, because it made me make the decision to drive back to the station and surrender everything, not knowing if I was ever going to be a police officer ever again, and take time off. And that time off was 3 years I was off. I came back to work just last year in the spring, and kind of recognized through my exposure to trauma program services, the ability for myself to heal all the demons, to deal with a lot of anger, again, a lot of exterior trauma, but also at the institutional, the moral, the sanctuary trauma. I kind of made that commitment to myself to be the person that I needed 10 years ago, that might have had time away, or was known to have struggles with their mental health or their feelings. Because so often in the services, once we're used to the point where we're no longer good, we're deemed broken, almost like a broken toy, cast aside, and we'll go hire. It's better we can go hire somebody else rather than invest in this old one, right? Just hire the shinier the new one. And I felt that's all I was going to be, was some broken. But when I was coming back to work, I made that commitment again to myself to be that somebody for somebody else. At the same time, having exposure with Wounded Warriors Canada and their trauma programs that they have for what I thought were just veterans. I thought, well, Wounded Warriors Canada, that's for military, that's veterans. Unbeknownst to me, they have a whole host of programs that are open to first responders. So police, fire, ambulance, both uniform and civilian, correction. They're all open for that, as well as family members as well, right? So that's key as well, to just highlight the importance of how good these organizations that were there to help me and give back to them. So I thought, what are one ways I could give back, but rather than, keep playing the lottery and thinking I was going to hit big and make a big charity donation that way. I thought of creating an apparel company that was going to be highlighting a focus of mental health to, gain traction and normalizing the conversation, to eliminating the stigmas associated with mental health, specifically for first responders, and then donate funds to Wounded Warriors Canada to help for their programs and services, not just for the members, but again, for the members' families, partners, and their kids. So that's where I was, and it's feeling pretty good right now.
Well, the British military recognised that. Well, it's quite a long time ago. The Royal Marines came up with it, and then it was picked up quite a few years ago by the Army as well. They came in with this TRIM process, which is trauma incident management, and what they do is it's directed primarily at operations, but it doesn't have to be. It just means that if you've been involved in a traumatic incident, then there's a process that you can go through to deal with it. And what happens is 72 hours after an incident, a TRIM team will come in. There'll be a coordinator and some practitioners. They'll look at the incident. They'll look at all the individuals that were involved with it directly or indirectly, and they'll come up with a process of who needs, whether they want a group, an overall group, to tell them that it's okay to not be okay, whether they need to be in a smaller group or whether they need to be an individual, and that's done at the 72-hour point. So, and that's all recorded, and then they'll come back in again in sort of 30 days time and do a follow-up to see if there's anything that's changed, anybody's still struggling with it, anybody that's losing sleep, it's constantly on the mind, that sort of thing. And the whole time is that they're being assessed whether they need to get processed or to get signposted on to professional help, or whether they're coping okay with it. And then there's a wash-up done at the 3-month period to see whether everybody's still dealing with it and is comfortable and return to normal. And if they haven't, again, the process is that they can be signposted on to professional help. There was another course that the British military brought in recent years, which is mental health first aid course, and that's directed at the individual to be able to take a group of individuals in and to give them the tool set to recognise looking after yourself, and also to recognise in others that could be suffering from some issues, to keeping your mental health at the forefront, to be able to make you more efficient. And that's what it's all directed at, is looking after your own mental health and those around you as well. And then for myself as a welfare officer, there's a place, or used to be a place, I think it's closed now, but called Amport House, which is where it's the chaplains department in the British Army, where you go down there and then you get care for the carers. So as a welfare officer, we went down there and did this particular course, and it's all about looking after the carers of carers. So it's giving you the tools to be able to recognise in yourself and into others, and it's a bit more in depth than the mental health first aid course, and that's been rolling out for quite a number of years. So it's understanding that doesn't matter how tough somebody is, they can have a problem with issues that they've seen in the past, and that's pushing forward, destigmatizing mental health issues. It doesn't mean that you're weak or anything like that. It just means that you can struggle just the same as anybody else.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that I think as a culture, as a society, we need to recognize is that the mental health anyone is prone to it, right? It's not just one demographic, one genre, or whatever. I know as first responders, we're heightened to be affected by mental health because just at the level of being exposed daily to traumas more so than general public, and being the point where if we are struggling, I know something that unfortunately was taught to me earlier on that I've been trying to unlearn my entire life is providing myself the time and space to feel like what I was dealing with was worthy of my time to process. Learn behaviors growing up, and I think just from the decades that I grew up was anytime you kind of voiced something that might have been bothering you, you're always kind of told somebody else has it worse, right? And I think getting into group, talking about things that are bothering somebody, that's one thing I want to make sure that I get other people, other first responders out there to know is that you never, ever have to earn your chair per se in therapy. You never compare your trauma. Your trauma has affected you, and it's important. And just because you feel that your trauma doesn't live up to possibly the gun battle of somebody else's, the accumulation of yours is yours. I don't know why at times there were events that I was a part of that I look back at and they're very sad, they're unfortunate, they're horrific, but they didn't affect me the way some other things did, right? And being somebody who, is on for 12 hours, off for 12 hours in that capacity of being a first responder, we do need to recognize the importance. Again, you brought up that program where people are coming in with after events, but some days those events can be, you have like 2 or 3 in one day because it's on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. And not really getting that space and time to be able to feel that you are allowed to recognize it or even deal with it, because it's always push forward, push down. You got to push down, you got to push forward. And in times of battle, in times of work, it's very important that we're able to do that, to get through, because not a lot of people in this world have the abilities that first responders do to run towards gunfire, right? To push things down from one call and move on to the next horrific event. But when that time comes of addressing it, that's when we have to move away just from post or talk. Just because we put a poster up, just say things are available, to actually action it, to make it applicable, to actually make it something that is done rather than just spoke about. And that's one thing that I am always looking forward to learn, which is organizations and programs that are out there that are doing fantastic things, whether it be just for the military, if there's something for firefighters or nursing or corrections or whoever. If it can help, more than one, that's fine, but at least get the information out there, because I love having conversations with people when I get to talk about Wounded Warriors or Boots on the Ground, which is an organization that's a 24-hour hotline for first responders, to almost like a suicide, not like a suicide, but like a mental health helpline.
A bit like
for
Samaritans for the first responders.
Well, this is all trained, but these are all done by first responders that are trained. So I love having conversations where if I'm talking about this, Tim or whoever's like, I know boots on the ground, or I know all that. I find so much joy in that, because then, okay, and I know you're out there saying as much as I am. Because one thing that I dislike, and I go to the point of hating, is like talking to somebody about how do you not know about this program? Like, there's not being done enough. There's not enough being done then to let everyone know that this program's available for you and everything that's available to them if they need it. And it just keeps me more motivated, more driven to make sure that I'm out there, helping the cause, and, normalizing those conversations of mental health, so that everyone can talk about going to the psychologist as they would, telling people that, yeah, I got a dentist appointment tomorrow, or I got to go to chiro or physio or whatever, right? Just as normal as those, right? Not feel like it's a dirty secret that needs to be hid. Yeah.
And I think that needs to start sort of day one, week one, when you go into training, and that has to be instilled
100.
right from day one. So people coming into the industry know that it's okay to not be okay, and know that it's a normal thing, that you can go forward and seek treatment if you're having difficulties, and catching it at the early stages is crucial to dealing with the problem. And I think that's where it needs to start. It needs to start day one, week one in training, and it's then out there, and particularly for older guys that have been set in their ways, they need to be retrained into that thinking that it's okay to not be okay, and the days of suck it up, princess, are over, because it can happen to the toughest of guys, and it can affect anybody and everybody, and that's where the training really comes in, from instilling it in from day one, week one.
Right. And like I said, it's not just putting the posters up, it's actually, making it so that if I put that poster up, I'm going to be somebody that if I put that poster up and I say it, that if somebody comes to me, I have an obligation, right? I have to walk the walk. I just can't talk it. And I think that even if we go back to the collegiate, where people are getting into the university or college programs to be training to be police officers, you have to get hired. You're not hired yet, but like I said, when I talk to kids at the collegiate level, are you doing these things now? Because this is a time that you need to do these things now, so that when you get hired, when we're exposed to trauma, not if we're exposed to trauma, but when trauma is exposed, because it's going to happen. It's not what if, you're able to already go back to that. It's so important. And I'm so happy and proud that somebody like yourself is aligned with that thought process, because we need more.
Absolutely. And I've seen it firsthand on more than one occasion. So I've seen the trim process in a hostile environment being practiced, and I've seen it at a professional level, being a welfare officer, dealing with it as well. So it's there to be used, and I think we'll see slightly less problems in the future from the Afghan days than we have from the Falklands days. I mean, we're still getting Falklands veterans with mental health issues, and I think, although it's an awful lot more people were involved in the Afghan campaign, I think the way that it's been dealt with over the years, and people have gone through that trim process, they've gone through that, then hopefully that's allayed a lot of the potential issues for further down the road.
And hopefully we don't have to see it at a state of like how many wars, right? This stage of war. Hopefully, people are taking time away from war to work on the mental health, and that when traumatic deployments and stuff are done, you know, we're not looking back in the history of time saying like, well, because of this war, we realized we got better. You know, I don't think there's people that want
Yeah.
any war.
No.
But you know, on the focus daily is what the mindset should be. And that's something that I do every day, right? I don't wake up every day and be happy. I wake up every day with a choice because I've acquired tools and resources that I have to implement daily. Because I know, if I'm implementing, you know, strategies and tools and things that I've learned on the daily, I'm better for my kids. When I don't do those, I'm drained, I'm exhausted, I'm burnt out, and I'm no good, not just to myself, but I'm not good to anybody. So really, you know, understanding that it's okay to afford ourselves the time and space to recognize that we are important. We need to take the time to work on things that are going to make us well. We can't always be at the stage of compassion fatigue where we're always doing for others. We're always doing for others. And every first responder, every military guy is always doing things for other people. But we need to recognize that, you know, that prehab that goes into your day-to-day is as important or more important, because it makes your rehab better, right? That old ounce of preventative yields a pound of cure. You know, just think if you were to put a pound of preventative in, how much yield you would get that would not only help you, but everyone else around you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look after number one and you can look after everybody else.
Yeah, and it's not selfish, you know, and so many times people think that it's such a selfish thing to think of yourself first. And in some cases, you know, maybe they're error, but for the most part, when it comes to your welfare, that's something that, you know, we need just to be a little bit better at, and allow ourselves at the end of the day, if we're reflecting, especially if you're journaling, heads up, journaling is fantastic. I recommend everyone do it. But you know, one thing that I always do is, you know, put down some things that I can recognize that I didn't do as well as I wanted to do, just to recognize it, not to kick my ass over, not to beat myself up. So just so that I can be more mindful that if it comes up tomorrow, I'm better prepared. So that again, it's just a recognition to one's own, you know, goods and bads.
Yeah.
Or I should say bads. I should say goods and not as good. You know, because we're today you gave your best, and if you knew more, you would do better. But you did the best with what you had, with the tools and information you had today, and some more. You're going to be that 1% better. And you know, when Tim and I are talking a year from now, I can't wait to see the 365% better Tim. That can be, because that's fantastic, right? Like that's when you're getting into like real massive change, and people think it always has to happen overnight, this instant gratification to be better, but it's small. You know, I knew midway point through my healing that, you know, this didn't happen overnight. It wasn't going to be cured overnight. It was going to take some time, but it took me applying and committing. And I'm at a place now where I can feel a sense of gratitude to the people that I had on that list that didn't help me, because they didn't help me, it put me in a position where my mental health was my full-time job. And I don't think I would be at the point I am today, feeling the way I am, if I had not made a full-time effort. So that's kind of one way I've reframed it. It's not that people are forgiven or absolved. It's, you know, it's for myself, and it's put me in a better place, and that's what's important.
Puts you in a better place to re-educate those that didn't help in the first place. Had they recognised it in the earlier stages, it wouldn't have gotten to where it got to. And I think that's where the re-education of everybody needs to come in.
Yeah. So, like I say, when with the apparel and all that I'm doing, that's something that I'm hoping that people will, you know, they're in the state where they're caring about themselves, they're caring about whether it be other first responders, It could be a sibling. It could be a partner of a first responder. They know that they're somebody that acknowledges the importance of mental health and wellness for first responders, and the fact that I can get as many checks to Wounded Warriors Canada as possible through the funds in raising.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Keith, for sharing that. I think that's been a really, really good chat.
Tim, I can't believe as I'm looking at the clock here that we've had more than an hour from before we came on, and now like it's over an hour of talking. Like it feels like it's been 5 minutes, but I think a lot of times those are the most genuine, authentic conversations where time flies and you're having fun.
Yeah.
But this conversation, can happen on both sides of the pond. And I just want to say I appreciate you having me on and doing what you do, and having these conversations, and having all your guests on to openly talk about this, because it's so important.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim. Have a great day.
And you.
The Tim Heale Podcasts. Ordinary people's extraordinary stories.